So over here I've got a little piece of solidified sulfur that I got once when I was in plant 8, and basically have spent quite a bit of time in plant 8 because our company did do a project that had to do with the SEMS, continuous emission monitoring system. In plant 8 there is a furnace that burns acid gas to produce elemental sulfur, and our job was to upgrade the SEMS system because the one that was in there already kind of got old over time and irreplaceable because, well, no manufacturer manufactures those old spare parts anymore and stuff like that. So one day I was like walking on my way back to the office from the plant, or actually, well, I was walking back to the permit center to close my permit, and I was like walking past some vessels and stuff like that, and sulfur pits. Sulfur pits are like one of the most interesting things in sulfur plants, in my opinion. And then so I walk by the vessels and I see that there is some sulfur that has been spilled, because normally at the plant sulfur is hot and it's in a liquid state, but when you spill it actually solidifies over time and stuff like that. I saw there's like a couple of big pieces of sulfur lying around. I'm like, I'm just gonna take one with me. Actually, I took two with me. One for a friend of mine, and another one is, well, for myself. So, yeah, elemental sulfur, cool stuff. And that's what we're gonna be talking about. Well, not actually about sulfur itself, but the first step in getting the elemental sulfur from our, byproducts in the base plant. It's not dirty or anything, it's just I'm checking my hands just because I don't want to touch my mouse and keyboard after touching, sulfur. That's not the cleanest one, because it also got some coke dust on it, so stuff like that. They actually make soap out of sulfur. If you ever been to like those Asian stores in Vancouver, they actually do sell sulfur soaps that were made back in China or somewhere else. And apparently that's supposed to help you with your if you have like a skin condition. But if you don't have a skin condition, there's not really a reason for you to buy a sulfur soap. Or it's not actually like a sulfur soap, it's a soap that's infused with some amount of sulfur. So maybe I should do like a proper introduction, because kind of started this video off with a personal story first, but let's do a proper introduction. Hello guys, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Niko, and today we're gonna be talking about plant 8, Amine Unit. So our base plant actually has quite a bit of plants that have something to do with sulfur. There are 3 plants that come into my mind when I'm thinking about sulfur. First of all, it's plant 8 is what we're talking about today. Then it's plant 53. It's actually, I think, the plant where I spend the most amount of time ever, like out of all plants, because, well, I was out there for the SAMS project, as well as in plant 8 for the continuous emission monitoring system, and as well as for the SRU furnaces compliances. And there's also plant 68, which is kinda in between plant 8 and plant 53. You'll find that a lot of the sulfur plants are for some reason really close to each other. No idea why, maybe it's just better to keep them together or something. And I do believe they exchange some of the product with each other in certain situations and stuff like that. So let's actually take a look at the Google Maps and see where those plants are located. Now, I usually turn off my labels when I look at the Google Maps because, well, there's just so much stuff that people have put everywhere that it just gets distracting. Like, for example, I turn my labels on, you're gonna see that there is a CBR project, there is a Tim Hortons, there's Plant 73, which I've never heard of Plant 73 before. I don't think that's a real plant at all. But if you zoom in close enough, you actually will see like that there is pins for plant 8, plant 53, and plant 68. For some reason I don't see it right now, but I'm 100% sure I've seen that before. So I'm just gonna turn the labels off, and instead of trusting other people's to tell you where is what, I'm gonna tell you where is what. Let's start with this first. So this little area over here, that's actually our plant 8. Then we're gonna move over northbound. There is plant 68 in this area. And then there is plant 53, which is actually the biggest sulfur plant from my understanding, at least. So yeah, as you can see, those plants are pretty close to each other, and we don't really have any other plants around except like there is plant 25 over here, which also a very interesting plant that we'll talk about later on. Vacuum distillation and stuff like that, atmospheric distillation, those are pretty fun things to talk about, but let's save that for later when we actually get to that point. So let's go back and focus on talking about plant 8. So the plant 8 actually has 3 units. The first unit is the Amine unit, the second unit is the sour water unit or sour water system, and the third unit is the SRU, sulfur recovery unit. In this video today we're going to be focusing on the first unit, which is the Amine unit, which is also, to me it seems like the first step in actually treating the sour water and the acid gas, and then it gets to the other units after that. So plant 8 was the original one of the original plants that were built back in '67. I'm sure there have been a lot of changes to the process, but overall I think the main idea has been preserved over the years, and actually there's not a whole lot of difference between the modern plants and the old plant. But the two main differences from the old plant that I've noticed were the one extra piece of equipment, which was the 3-stage separator, and the whole plant actually uses completely different amine solution to do kind of the same thing. And we'll talk about that in a second, but let's kind of focus on the main kind of idea here. So the basic idea, we don't want sulfur in our fuel. Sulfur in our fuel reduces burning efficiency, or maybe I should probably just say the explosion efficiency in our combustion engines, and it also has a negative impact on our environment. And I should also mention that sulfur also results in increased soot accumulation inside of the cylinders in your combustion engine. That's kind of like the simplest explanation I can provide. I'm not an expert in combustion engines, but I'm sure if you ask somebody who knows everything about combustion engines, they would kind of tell you similar thing in better detail and greater detail. Now, the government actually regulates how much sulfur should be in the fuel, just because, like I said earlier, it has a negative impact on the environment. And because of that, we really want to make sure that we get rid of the sulfur in our product in order to comply with those government regulations and keep everybody happy and stuff like that. Oil sands actually have a really high amount of sulfur comparing to the conventional oil sources, and we're actually looking for up to 8% of per unit weight of sulfur in our oil sands, right? So that means that in our 100 kilograms of oil sands, we're going to have 8 kilograms of sulfur. And as we continue to extract the bitumen from the oil sands, we get rid of the clay and the sands, the sulfur actually kind of stays there together with the bitumen. So that kind of carries over. And so I think it would be pretty fair to say that for 100 kilograms of bitumen, we would probably also have 8 kilograms of sulfur. But that's actually going to depend on location, because if you mine over there or over here, you're going to get like different sulfur content in your mined oil sand. So yeah, 8% per unit weight of sulfur in oil sands, and that compares to about 1 or 2%, if I remember correctly, of sulfur in like conventional oil, right? And our government regulations require us to have somewhere around like 0.2, maybe 0.25, which is actually kind of a lot, percent per weight of sulfur in our final product, which is the synthetic crude oil that we're producing here. So yeah, that's kind of like the basic idea here. So we understand that we're gonna have a lot of sulfur in oil sands. We understand that there are regulations that require us to keep the sulfur contents as low as possible, and because of that we have pretty big plants that have to deal with all that. So let's talk about where in the plant sulfur actually comes from. So we can't get rid of the sulfur by itself. We actually have to rely on the hydrogen sulfide, which is, if you've seen my previous episode, you've heard me talk about it a bit already. And yes, I did tell you that this is a toxic gas, meaning that if you breathe it, you're gonna feel very, very bad, and you will die eventually. And there's actually 3 common processes where hydrogen sulfide is produced. So first it's distillation, then it's the hydrotreatment, and the third one is the hydrocracking. Now we're not gonna talk about those processes in detail in this video. We'll talk about them in the future videos in more detail, and so we'll understand where hydrogen sulfide comes from. So in those 3 processes, we commonly have 2 common byproducts, toxic byproducts that is. We have the acid gas, which is mostly just hydrogen sulfide in its gas form. And then we have sour water, which is the water with a very, very high amount of diluted hydrogen sulfide in it. It's called sour water. I don't really know if it actually tastes sour, but I assume it does. But if you probably taste it, you're gonna feel really bad because it's still toxic, right? So yeah, don't drink sour water and don't sniff acid gas. So our plant 8 amine unit, which is what we're talking about today, is the first step that actually deals with the acid gas. It actually uses a chemical called diethanolamine, which is used to absorb the hydrogen sulfide from our product, from our stream, which is also sometimes known as acid gas scrubbing or something along those lines. Our modern plants actually use a different chemical called diglycolamine, which is I don't really know in terms of chemical kind of properties if it's how much it is different, but looking at the process, it seems like it's generally very similar to diglycolamine, except that one 3-stage separator equipment that I've seen in the process description, but we're not gonna talk about that today. So, and before we go any further, I think this would be a really good time to actually start talking about these vessels that we see everywhere, the tall vessels, the columns, because up to this point I've never actually mentioned what generally they do. So you can classify columns by what they do. So there are fractionator columns and there's absorption columns. Fractionator columns usually separate different fractions of hydrocarbons based on their difference in boiling temperature and stuff like that. And absorption columns is where we most commonly have a gas and a liquid interacting with each other, and there is some absorption of one or another happening in there. So that's kind of the oversimplified classification of columns. Now you probably noticed that those columns are actually pretty tall towers, right? So they go up pretty high. So why is that? When we talk about absorption columns, we want to have as much of surface area for the gas and the liquid to interact with each other. What we can do to achieve that, we can build like a very, very big vessel that, you know, spans like, I don't know, like a kilometer or, 50 meters, 100 meters, like a very big vessel where we have everything kind of interacting. You know, we have a very big surface area for the gas and the liquid to interact with each other. Or we can build like a tall column in which we have what's known as little trays, kind of like shelves, where as the liquid flows down, the liquid has a lot of surface area to spread on one tray and then flow down to a tray below and then spread there, and another tray below, spread over there. And the gas, as it flows up through the column, it also spreads everywhere and has that area surface area to interact with the liquid. So, conclusion, the reason why we have our columns so tall is because we want to have a lot of surface area for the gas and the liquid to interact with each other. And the way we achieve that is by having a lot of trays inside of the vessel, inside of the column, so well, the gas and liquid get to interact with each other. Simple, very simple, right? And what you just learned, you will see that in action right now, because I'm going to show you another piece of art I drew another day. Actually, it took me like 2 days to draw it. I spent way too much time on this. Here's what we're gonna be talking about today: the amine unit of plant 8. Does that look like a lot of stuff? Well, I guess it does, but once we kind of go over this, you'll understand that it's actually a lot more simpler than it than it looks here. So anyways, let's get started with this flow diagram. We're gonna start from the left side as always. Wait, is this left side? Yeah, left side. I'm forgetting my left and right again. So I already mentioned that plant 8 has 3 units in it. So it's the amine unit, it's the sour water unit, sour water system, and the SRU, the sulfur recovery unit. In our amine unit, we actually happen to have 3 systems. We have the high pressure amine absorption system, then we have the low pressure amine absorption system, and then we have the amine regeneration system. So we are gonna start with the high pressure amine absorption system, and once I talk about that, I'm not even gonna talk about low pressure amine absorption system at all, because it's just very similar. There's like 1 or 2 differences here and there, but let's get started here. So the first thing we're gonna start with is the knockout drum. If you've seen my previous video about the flare system, you already know what the knockout drum is. It's a piece of vessel, it's a piece of equipment that helps us separate our vapor, liquid vapor, from the gas. So what comes into our plant 8 is the mixture of sour water and acid gas, commonly known at the plant as swag. Before swag enters our knockout drum, we actually have a little 3-way valve. If there is something happening in the plant, they actually can direct the sour water and acid gas to the flare system, and then this flare system will flare it away safely, will burn away the sour water, acid gas, and stuff like that. Inside of our knockout drum, we actually have what's known as a mesh screen demister, which is only allows gas to go up and stops the liquids and vapors from getting through, and essentially all of that stuff just falls down to the bottom of the knockout drum, and what we left with is just acid gas that goes and leaves the top of the vessel, and then the sour water that leaves at the bottom of the vessel. Gravity separation, simple stuff. So yeah. So the purpose of the wash water column. So what happens here is we're actually washing our gas with water. Our wash water is actually at a lower temperature than the gas, and that actually helps condense any heavy hydrocarbons in the gas, because in our next stage we don't really want to have any heavy hydrocarbons that may vaporize and stuff like that, because that will reduce our efficiency. Another thing that wash water does is that it removes the organic acids, and Well, it doesn't really remove that, it just converts them to salts from my understanding. And the way it's done is by mixing caustic soda or some other like caustic agent into the water, so it helps those organic acids to convert to salts. And the reason why is because if we don't get rid of the organic acids right now, in our next stages, those organic acids may turn into strong bonded salts, which will decrease the efficiency of our absorption process later on. Those strong bonded salts also increase corrosivity, meaning that there's going to be more corrosion in piping and the equipment and stuff like that, which we don't want. So that's kind of why we're getting rid of that stuff. And the salts also increase the viscosity of our amine solution, which results in foaming, and the foaming is whole another inefficiency that we would have to deal with if we didn't have this wash water column. So in this vessel we actually have packing, and packing is usually, it sometimes different, but most of the time it could be like ceramic pellets that kind of like there's a lot of them and they're all like closely packed to each other. So that's another way of increasing the surface area to improve the interaction between the gases and fluids. In the wash water column, most of the time our wash water is circulated in a closed loop. So the wash water enters our column from the top, the wash water flows down through the pack and interacts with the gas and then gets to the bottom, and at the bottom what we have is a recirculation pump that pumps it back into the column again, and that goes through the heat exchanger, which is if you've never seen a symbol for a heat exchanger, this is what heat exchangers look like. This is like a generic symbol for a generic kind of heat exchanger. In this case we have our water that's being cooled with a cold water. So as our wash water is being recirculated, this heat exchanger helps remove the heat from this closed loop system. And then we do have a utility water supply from wherever else in case if we need more water in this system. And we do have a blow down valve that goes to the blow down in case if we need to empty this water loop for maintenance, for example. One more piece of the equipment I wanted to point out here is the bypass valve. So there may be situations in which our wash water column may not be capable of dealing with the amount of product coming in, and in that case there is a bypass valve that can be opened up to kind of bypass the wash water column and to send our product directly to the next vessel, to the next column here.